Let's move over. Steve Spurrier, 5th year in South Carolina. Only his 5th year, surprising. They were 7-6 last year. They returned 11 starters, and I mean they were playing the merry-go-round with the quarterback position last year. Steven Garcia will finally be the man. They bring in a true freshman who's probably going to start at tailback for them, in Jarvis Giles, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And they bring in a whole bunch of receivers and defensive backs. They bring in Brown and Alshon Jeffrey, who are both true freshmen, to play wide receiver.
Well, they need to find a running game quick because that's the thing that's holding them back. It's good that they've settled on Steven Garcia at quarterback. He's an athletic guy, can run around a little bit. He's a good leader for that team. But they need to find a running game. The freshman you spoke of, he might come in. Javaris Giles, speedy guy. When I say he has sick moves. Stop on a dime, make moves in the phone booth, burst down the field. I love the way he plays the game. It's going to be fun to watch him in the SEC as a true freshman.
Well, if Steven Garcia can avoid some SEC referees on the field, trying to make some spin moves against them, maybe he will do better. But let's talk about their offensive line. New offensive line coach Eric Wolford. He's in there, and they get Jean-Pierre back at left guard. They need to pave the way for a running game because almost every team in the SEC has a running game. You need to run the ball, and the SEC play a little defense. But I mean, if they come one-dimensional, it's a problem.
I love their offensive line. It's a veteran group. They're led by the right tackle, Kevius Watkins, big guy. He's 6'6", 320, huge guy. Anytime you have an inexperienced quarterback, a young running back, having a good offensive line is their best friend. You're going to see South Carolina be able to move the ball down the field this season because of the strength of their offensive line.
Ellis Johnson, the defensive coordinator, he'll be in his 2nd year at South Carolina after coming over from Mississippi State, and they have a huge middle linebacker, weak side linebacker, say 250 pounds plus, Eric Norwood, who leads that defense. They got an improved defensive line also, and their secondary, they loaded up on true freshmen and incoming players at the DB. They got Culliver and Chris Payne coming back, but they got Gilmore, Holloway, and Deshaun Jeffrey coming in to try to play corner.
Stephon Gilmore, that's a guy that Steve Spurrier raves about. He's going to start as a true freshman. That's impressive. To start as a true freshman on defense for a Steve Spurrier coach team, that's impressive for that young man. And they secondary, Culliver, I like Culliver. He's a ball hawk back there in the safety. And you're right, they load up on defensive backs this year. I guess they were trying to get beat deep last year, so you have to load up and stock up. So I like what they've done in the offseason on the recruiting trail. So look for the secondary to be the strength of that defense.
Out with the old, that's Captain Munnerlin and Emmanuel Cook. In with the new, they want a new regime in their secondary. Brutal schedule this year. They're at NC State to open up the season, of course, and then they're at Georgia the 2nd week, and they stay away from LSU, which is good, but this is a brutal schedule for the Gamecocks and Spurrier.
Right. Even though they beat NC State last year, NC State is a year older. They're tougher. Week 2 at Georgia. Then they have to go to Alabama this year. This is a tough schedule for South Carolina and Steve Spurrier, and especially once they get into conference play, those teams beat up on each other. But out of conference, that's a real tough slate. And I'm interested to see the game against South Carolina State. That's a good one. South Carolina State is an FCS team that made the playoffs last year and gave Appalachian State a run for their money. So that could be a game to watch.
Let's head northwest to Knoxville, where Lane Kiffin has been anything but the quietest SEC coach in the conference. He is challenging everybody in the SEC. This is his 1st year. Of course, he brings in the great defensive mind in his family. That's his father, who coached those great Tampa Bay Buccaneers squads. He's now the defensive coordinator at Tennessee. They were 5-7 last year. Phil Fulmer, he was out, and they bring 13 starters back. A lot of coming and going there. Players transferring, bringing players in, and a big signing they got, Bryce Brown, the number 1 rated running back in the country. He's going to start as a true freshman, and they're going to give him the rock.
Yeah, that's one thing to help out Lane Kiffin because they have some quarterback issues with Crompton and the receivers. They really need to improve their passing game. So the best way to do that, give the ball to the running back. And Bryce Brown is one of the top running backs that come out in the past 3 years. This guy withheld his signing until late in the process and signed with Tennessee. He's going to start 6 feet, 215, a real good back, real solid, balance, and has speed to break away.
Jonathan Crompton returns as quarterback. He's a senior. He was getting death threats last year. Couldn't believe it. Kept it quiet. So he's their new. They retain him at quarterback, and his weapons. Gerald Jones, of course. They played in the G gun. He was taking snaps on the center. This guy is versatile. Denarius Moore, who's their big play threat receiver, and Austin Rogers. They supposedly have gotten injured the last couple of weeks, but they got a guy named Nukese Richardson, wide receiver, and of course they brought in from Florida State a transfer, Brandon Warren.
Well, look for those receivers to improve because they have no choice but to go up. Another true freshman running back to look out for, David Oku, another good back. So Tennessee's going to run the rock this year. And any improvement they get out the quarterback is going to be icing on the cake. But I think that offense was real terrible last year, and that's one thing that kept them out of a lot of games.
Well, to run the ball, they need to run behind these big hog mollies. Chris Scott, the left tackle, he's going to lead the way as a senior, and Jacques McClendon, the right guard, is your offensive line. They're going to open it up because you figure quarterback like Crompton, he can't really make plays better as a manager, and the great defense Monty Kiffin is going to bring. Let's run the ball, Bryce Brown. This is why we got him, especially in the first year. You're not going to get all the athletes you want. Run the ball, play defense. So this offensive line is pivotal.
Right, and you bring up a good point with that defense. I mean, Lane Kiffin bringing his dad on to coach that defense up. Awesome hire. You look at the defense last year, their rush defense was phenomenal. They gave up 2.8 yards per carry. That's impressive. Playing in the SEC with a lot of good running backs that only give up 2.8 yards a rush, impressive. They also, because it starts with the big nose tackle, Big Dan Williams, 6'3", 330, stuffing the run up the middle. So I love their run defense and the 6-yard return off that defense.
Rico McCoy leading the linebackers. What about their secondary? They got a true freshman is going to start at safety alongside, of course, the great Eric Berry, and that's Darren Miles. He's going to start at the other safety. And they got two decent corners in Dennis Rogan and Brent Vincent.
Keep an eye on that secondary. That's going to be a strength now. And they learned it from a good guy, Eric Berry, who can play safety and corner. He's a real good talent. He's going to help. He's going to be a coach on the field for those younger guys. And they're going to be talented in the second. That defense, Tennessee always had a talented defense, and they pick up one of the best linebackers in the country, in Jared Askew. He'll start, as a true freshman at middle linebacker. That's impressive to go down there in the SEC as a middle linebacker and start, especially at a program like Tennessee.
Marsalis T, who's brought in as a true freshman as a D-back who's recruited, but they're supposedly going to move him to wide receiver to help it out. So they got the weapons on defense. This is what they're probably going to try to do, run the ball, play defense. Let's talk about their schedule. At a conference, they host UCLA. First game of the season, they open up against Ohio. They should win those games, but in conference play, they're at Florida, at Alabama, and at Ole Miss.
Tough. You took the words right out of my mouth. Those are 3 games that they have to go away and play in the SEC. That's a tough slate of games. The big game to me is how they come out against UCLA. They went out there to Los Angeles last season and lost a good game to open up the season. But I want to see how they respond. Revenge is the sweetest poison. I want to see if they come out strong against UCLA. Tennessee could surprise some people.